So you shot your first deer and then was like, yeah, this is the way I'm going to go?
Yeah, right away. I knew right away. As soon as I shot it, I was like, okay, this is how I was looking at it. This is a wild animal. This animal might not have even ever seen a person until it saw me. It's entirely possible.
Where was it?
It was in the Missouri Breaks. It's in Montana. It's called the Missouri Breaks. It's off the banks of the Missouri River. We took a canoe trip. We took a bunch of canoes 40 miles down a river.
In just a giant park, national park?
Well, it's all public lands. It's all an area you're allowed to hunt. You can just buy a tag. So that's what we did.
But no one lives there. There's no homes there?
No, you can't. You can't.
Show me on your map where this place is.
I could.
On Google Maps?
Take some time, though. Well, let me just describe it.
Okay, yeah.
I'll describe it. Well, this is the best way to describe it. The issue is that although it's near a river, what they didn't understand back then when they were first discovering this part of America is that it's the remnants of the Great Western Inland Sea. It used to be a gigantic inland ocean with like fucking megalodons and dinosaurs and shit. They find a ton of dinosaurs out in Montana. It's like a dinosaur. As a matter of fact, a guy I know, his friend had a ranch and a fucking paleontologist found a dinosaur on his ranch and he got $1.5 million for it.
Really?
Yes. They found a fucking full intact dinosaur.
Lottery.
Very partially intact dinosaur. But so the ground is like, you know that ground that's in the bottom of a lake where it's like silt, where it's not quite dirt. It's like mushy, kind of silty because it's just been there forever and it's been the bottom of a lake. That's what the ground is out there. So nothing grows in that shit. There's like some bushes and some small trees, but most of it is just mud. And occasionally you get some patches that sustained like forest growth, but there's a lot of it where it's just mud.
That's the Badlands?
It's called the Missouri Breaks.
Okay.
And
it's not the Badlands.
When you're walking around, like your boots get caked up with this stuff.
Yeah.
So they become 3 times as heavy. Like the bottom, it's like it sticks to the bottom of your boot. So anytime it's even remotely wet out there, you're walking in this like incredible goo and deer everywhere.
So then you shot one. Did you train on it beforehand? On how to shoot and stuff?
Not too much, because with a rifle, when you're shooting with a rifle, we did a few practice shots. He just sort of emphasized that you just have to center the animal in the reticle and squeeze the trigger very gently. You don't want to yank it. You want to.
That's all they taught you?
Yeah, basically taught me trigger control and where to hit the animal. With a bow, it's way more difficult, but with a rifle, if you have a steady rest and you understand to not punch the trigger, you want the trigger to go off by accident. You want to just pull, bang, and it goes off. You don't want to go bang. You don't want to like force it to go off, because if you force it to go off, you're going to jerk and you're going to move it offline.
You knew that before the first time you did it?
Yeah, he told me that.
Okay.
Yeah, and I talked to some people because I was really interested in like what I had to do, but I didn't get nearly enough practice as I should have.
Yeah.
Shooting. I maybe shot like 7 shots with a rifle.
That's it?
Yeah. We just shot at some targets. We set them up on the beach, and once I started hitting like pretty much the center, and he figured that I figured out what I was doing. He's like, "Well, let's conserve ammo."
7 shots?
Like, you got it. Yeah. We were practicing from about 100 yards away with a gun. That's not that hard. It's pretty easy with a gun.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because a rifle has a scope, and the scope is magnified. So when you're looking down the rifle scope, like I shot an elk just a couple weeks ago, and it was 287 yards, really far, and it hit it perfect.
Call of Duty?
Just like bang, hit it in the body. You don't want to hit it in the head. It's that if you miss, you blow their eyeballs out or something, you blow their nose off, and they run away, and you never find them.
Oh.
You want to hit them in the body only. Nobody ever shoots anything in the head.
Have you...
no, I shouldn't say nobody, but
you're just not supposed to?
Super rare.
And then what, you just hit in the body and let it like fall down eventually?
If you shoot it in the lungs, you go through both lungs, and they're dead almost instantly. They're
right away, they just fall over.
They run till there's no more air, and they fall down, and that's it. It takes a few seconds if you hit them right.
Have you ever missed one?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Okay, so hold on. So take me through that. I want to know what that's like. Where you get out there, you get like a shot. How do you decide who shoots it?
Well, that's depending on who you're hunting with. You have to decide that in advance. Most of the time, you would go like, depending on whether or not you had a guide or whether or not you were going with buddies to do like a buddy system. Like you would help each other. Like you would say like you're up today. Like say if you and I went and we were both hunting, I'd say, look, this is what we do. Today you're up, and depending on what kind of hunting you're doing, like say I'll glass over in this area for you, meaning I'll look with binoculars in this area, and you look in this area, that will cover more territory. And then once we find the animal, then we'll make a plan to try to move in on it, find out where the wind is going. There's a lot of things that have to come up. You have to really be careful about your wind. You want to make sure your wind is never drifting down towards the animal, because they can smell you hundreds of yards away.
So if you see one that's downwind,
you're fucked.
You just can't get to it.
Most of the time. Every now and then, it doesn't. There's no real logic, just like with people, to animals. There's general rules.
Yeah.
And the general rule is an animal smells you, they'll bolt. But occasionally they don't. So occasionally they smell you and they look at you. Maybe they never smelled a person before.
I saw a deer I was in Rosemont, Chicago.
Oh, yeah?
They had a little like hike behind the place. So I just went and I saw a deer back there. He just like looked at me. He was pretty close too. And I just kept, I was like, oh, it's like pretty. And I just imagine you jumping out of the bushes. I'm like, kill it, kill it. And just like stabbing it with an arrow.
I wouldn't do it that way, but it happens pretty quick. When you shoot something with an arrow, it's almost quicker sometimes because they bleed out so quick.
It's so big.
Well, there's a difference between like a gunshot wound creates a lot of trauma and shock.
Yeah.
And it blows things apart. But what an arrow does, it's like a samurai sword that slices through everything. So they bleed, like almost instantly, they bleed out.
Yeah.
A lot of times they have no idea what happened. They just felt a sharp pain, and then all of a sudden they're running.
What the fuck?
And they don't know what happened, and they're down, and it's over.
Wait, so you hunt this deer.
Yeah.
You and your buddy, you're up today.
Yeah, this is how you would do it.
One of you fucking says, I got one.
Yeah, you see it, and then you would try to figure out how to get to it. You would try to, depending on where the animal is, like if the animal was bedded down, like it was in some bushes bedded down, what you would do is you would try to get to a position where when it got out of its bed, you would be ready.
Oh.
So you'd be, because they all do that. They bed down during the day, they take naps, and they sort of like, they're always awake. They was just sort of looking around, and then when it starts to get dark, then they get up and start walking around and feed. Oh. And so you want to be ready for when it gets up. And a lot of it is a guessing game. You got to guess he's going to go this way.
We found one of those beds in Banff.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, you see them all over the place.
Yeah, I was worried it was moose.
Could be.
It could be moose.
They're scary.
Yeah, I was like, guys, don't go in there. But they all want to go in and look at it.
Those are the only ones you have to be worried about. Those are the only ones that'll fuck you up. Like an elk, if they're horny and they're in the rut, it's totally possible that an elk might charge you or headbutt you or something.
What if you're near their kid? Or
they'll be gone. You'll never get that close. They're not like bears. Bears fuck up. Like bears would be like curious and shit, go down the wrong road, and all of a sudden there's a hiker. That shit does not happen.
I'm like, well, I guess I got to kill it.
Deer hear you, and they're like, what the fuck? Yeah. Doing, doing. They just bounce away.
So wait, so you track this thing. So you're like, okay, I got one. Yeah. Or he's like, I got one. You meet up, and you're like, hey, I found one. How many yards away? How many hours away? Yeah, like a typical one. What would it normally be?
You would like to get as close as you can. But there's a certain distance where if you go any closer, you're going to blow this because there's no way it's going to see you or it's going to hear you or the wind is bad.
No, but I mean, like, how far away when you glass it? How far away is that?
Well, the first time we saw it was about 100 yards.
Oh, that's it. Okay.
I couldn't get the scope set up properly. I was too close to the scope, and I had to realize that I had to sit back a little bit to center it in. And then once I sat back a little bit and centered it in, the fucking deer went behind a rock. Oh. So then I was with Steve Ranella. He made this noise, this weird noise he'd made with this little whistle thing he has. And the deer paused for just a second and came out from behind the rock, and I shot it. It just dropped.
Whoa.
It was crazy. Yeah, it was like about 200 yards, and it dropped, and then I had to go over there and finish it off.
Were you even breathing when you shot it the first time?
I was just happy that it worked. You know, because this is the first time I ever shot at anything that was alive, and I'm just squeezing the trigger, and boom, it goes off, and then next thing I know, the deer's legs are up in the air.
Do you remember if you were nervous at all?
I was totally nervous. 100%.
So, like, when it goes behind the rock, you're like, fuck, can't get a beat on it? Are you just like...
the whole time I was nervous. I was trying to stay calm. I was like, wow, this is a tremendously pressure-filled moment.
Yeah.
It's very, very difficult to do. You know, like anybody who thinks that hunting in any way is easy, man, it's fucking nerve-wracking. Super nerve-wracking.
How much are you trying to press that guy?
Well, I definitely didn't want to be a bitch around him. Yeah. For sure.
Launch
but I was
never
going to impress him.
Yeah.
There's no fucking way that's going to impress him. I mean, he's probably killed... He's been hunting since he was a teenager. He's never
I know, but I mean, like, get a
good
job. You did it well.
Oh, well, he did say that, man. He was happy. He was super happy. And I was happy that he was happy because when someone takes you on, like, in a mentorship role, like, is going to mentor you through something, like, It's an honor in a lot of ways, and it's also a fucking tremendous responsibility for you, because a lot of people would die to be in that position. Like, you better do the most with it. Someone who's a diehard hunter who could go and get this guy Steve Ranella to take him on a guided hunt, like, holy shit, you're so lucky, you know?
Yeah, that is cool.
So I looked at it that way. But when I started eating that deer, we were eating it over the fire.
That night?
That night we ate the liver, and we had liver and heart. We cut out the liver and the heart. We took that back to the camp. And then because we were pretty far out, and we didn't want to carry the deer that night, so because we were going to have to butcher it and chop it up, and that takes a long time, and we didn't want to do it that night. So we decided to hang the deer in a tree. So you hang it in a tree so nothing can get to it. But you still, like, cats can get to it, and things can get to it. But we hung it pretty high in the tree, and we took the organs back to the camp. We walked, like, whatever it was, like maybe a mile and a half, 2 miles. And we got back to the camp and cooked the liver and the onions over a campfire, and it was glorious.
That's pretty cool.
That was pretty much when I decided I'm going to do this from now on. Like, this makes sense, because this, I don't feel bad about that animal's life, because that animal lived a wild life. It's the way it's supposed to live. It's as wild as it gets. We were there for 6 days. I saw maybe 3 people.
Really? Oh, that sounds great.
It was amazing.